God had ordained under David and Solomon. No, just stay here and worship this golden calf. You remember what the Jews set up at the base of Sinai? Golden calf. Man, they like that golden calf. I don't know what it is about calves and golden calves they like, but it just kind of, and many of the Jews did not faithfully worship God anymore. They started doing this kind of a mumbo-jumbo worship where, yeah, there were some of the Jewish customs, maybe even some of the Jewish holidays, and he begins to mention this. Come to Bethel and transgress, and Gilgal, multiply transgression. Bring your sacrifices every morning. That's what they did at the temple. There were sacrifices made there every single morning. God had ordained that. And he says, and your tithes after 3 years. After 3 years, they went and they brought the tithes of everything that they had earned back to God. Who are they bringing it to? A golden calf from Bethel. A bunch of people who were priests and Levites that were not of the priest or Levitical order, and who did not believe, like the Jews in Judea believed, in the God Jehovah only, but instead it becomes this formalized worship of a false deity. And he's pointing it out to them. And offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving with leaven. Now, when I first looked at it, I said, oh yeah, they're never supposed to offer an offering with leaven. Well, yes, actually they are. Leaven is the proper one for a thanksgiving offering. If you go back and study it out in Leviticus, because most of the time, no, it's got to be unleavened bread and all that kind of thing. And it says, and proclaim and publish the free offerings. Man, they're saying, look, you can bring a free will offering, you can do this, and all the things that you could do in Jerusalem, you can do right here in Bethel. Except you're really not bringing it to God. I've got to wonder how many people in churches all across America are faithfully attending, faithfully supporting, maybe sacrificially giving, and they're going to find out you were in the wrong church. You were following a wrong theology. It wasn't from this book. They'd long ago drifted, and here you are. You're supporting basically another golden calf. Listen, when you get so far off the beam that you can endorse some of the immorality and ungodliness that some of the churches today are endorsing, you're not worshiping the God of this Bible. And notice what he says there in verse 2. The Lord God has sworn by his what? Holiness. And that means he's not letting down his standard for you or for anybody else. That's kind of a scary thing. I mean, you always like to be the exception. Oh, God, you know. But that's not the way it works. God has his holiness, and he expects us what? Become holy too. And then hold up that standard, and not let it. But here these people are. Well, they're having all the outward expressions of religion. All the things are going on. And God says, for this liketh you, O ye children of Israel, saith the Lord God. Yeah, this is like it. This is what you want. You want the form of godliness without the power. And by the way, when I say that, you know, the form of godliness without the power. Over there in 2 Timothy 3:5, let's take one quick look at that this evening as we come to a conclusion here. But Paul is warning Timothy about this very same thing in the New Testament. And as he's warning him, he tells him, he talks about verse 4, this on 2 Timothy chapter 3. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. All these people, look at that long list. It starts out with the very first verse. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, blasphemers, blah, blah, blah. Whole long list, grocery list of bad character and bad habits. And then he gets down there and he says this about them. Here they are with all this wickedness going on in their lives, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Don't stick around people that claim to be Christian and live like the world. And when I say don't stick around people, I'm talking about that's not the people you should be worshiping with on Sunday. When you see a lot of ungodliness going on in the congregation of the church, now I'm not saying that every single person in Liberty Baptist lives a perfectly clean, straight, arrow, pure life. No, we don't. We're all sinners saved by grace. But when you see people that make a practice of this, and they feel perfectly comfortable doing this kind of stuff, and that's the ones that are going to that church, that may be a sign you need to worship somewhere else. And that's what God sometimes is trying to tell you. And so here, God says they have that form of godliness, they deny the power thereof. And as he says that, we come back to our text, and we see that God has said, look, there is coming judgment. I am not going to withhold it forever. And so here we go in chapter 4, at the very end of the passage we read. This liketh you, O ye children of Israel, saith the Lord God. Next week, we'll get into the next part of it, where he starts talking about the judgments he's already sent to try to get them straightened out. God doesn't allow those things to happen. He doesn't allow it to happen among his people without warnings. He doesn't allow it even to happen among lost people sometimes without sometimes bringing things to pass that should have woke them up. I'll give you an example of that. All across the Islamic world right now, there are common people that are coming to Christ in surprising numbers because they've recognized one thing: Islam is not a religion of peace. I mean, you look anywhere where that religion has gone, and you show me the peace that has come from that. Yemen is at war. There's a civil war going on in that country. Sudan, 2 Islamic groups are fighting for control and have driven half the country into exile. Hamas. When did Hamas ever practice peaceful coexistence with Israel? And the answer is never. Hezbollah and Iran. Is that the neighbor you want? Is this the plain peace? If Iran could, they would just as soon bowl over Saudi Arabia as well as the other countries. Well, the common person on the ground in places like Syria that have experienced nothing but civil war and everything else, and half of them a good number of them are in refugee camps. They're looking for something else. They've recognized what God has spoken. This is a dead end. We need Jesus. The other thing that's happened by the grace of God, I mentioned this, in those refugee camps, you have heard, of course, about the Red Crescent, right? The Red Crescent is, that's Islam's approach to Christian charities. It seems that the Red Crescent never seems to do anything about those huge, overflowing refugee camps of people who can't provide for themselves because they're stuck in this place where there's no jobs, no opportunities, no ground to farm, nothing. You're basically, you're warehoused as an internally displaced person with no opportunity. And so they let the Christian groups go in there because who cares? That's the poor, that's the needy, that's the outcast. Yeah, sure, you Christians can go there, and you can bring your food, you can bring your medicine, and you can bring your teams in there to try to do work. You know what happens? Muslims become Christians because the only people that care are the people that have the love of Christ in their heart. You can't generate that. You can't manufacture it. I still remember that song in the 60s or 70s. Come on, everybody, love your brother, you know? Really? If it was